Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who has quickly become a great friend from across the pond. He has taken the shadow work program and he has changed dramatically over the last 2 months. He is a spiritual warrior for God and is here to help guide humanity back on course. Everybody, welcome Malcolm Welch to the show.
Hi, Emmanuel.
Hey, Malcolm, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thanks, mate. All thanks to you. Well, a lot of it thanks to you, for
Yeah,
sure.
well, I was just a facilitator. You are the one who put in the work for yourself, and you are the one who has changed yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
all I kind of did, I guided you in a little bit and I mixed you in with Jesus a little bit. And then from there, I mean, you're not the same person that I met up with 2 months ago. When we first
No,
were on that Zoom call with Amy Belair, uh you're anywhere close to that same person any longer. I mean, you are completely different.
yeah, yeah. I am. You're right.
N-
I'm at a
n-
completely different vibration.
Yeah,
I am.
and the thing is, see, Christians, they want to always give everything to Jesus, and New Agers want to say it's all you. But I feel that it's both. It is in unison that you are wanting it, and Jesus is helping you get there. And it goes step in, hand in hand, step in step, and how it all happens. And you've been reading the amazing book, Anna, who is
Yes,
allegedly Jesus's grandmother. And you and
yes.
Mimi have been talking about that. Mimi unfortunately isn't here, but do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Well, yeah, that is a very interesting book. Um, it really needs a whole episode just for the book, to be quite honest with you. But there are so many things in that book that resonated with me. So many times during when I was reading it, I got chills. You know, the kind of sort of resonance when you get chills and you think, oh yeah, that kind of rings true. And it's kind of the way I think a lot of us feel. It's our guide sort of confirming things to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, it's a fascinating book, and I think it's given me more idea about why Yeshua or Jesus came when he came and what he came for. And it's quite remarkable to think that he knew what was going to happen to him from, you know, I mean, quite a long time before it happened.
Right.
And even somebody like Judas, the way you think about Judas, it's almost become another word for traitor. But really, he was just doing his job. He was one of his disciples and he had a difficult job to do. And he was asked by Yeshua, Jesus, to identify him to Pontius Pilate's men, and that's what he did. And he probably had one of the hardest jobs out of all the disciples because he had to basically betray his good friend, and he didn't really want to do it, but he had to do it, and it was all part of the divine plan
Wow.
for for um for Yeshua, Jesus, to come. And the real message that I get from the book is that he wanted us to teach us not to be afraid of death, and that death was nothing to fear, for we are immortal. Um, and also, like what you were saying before about giving me some credit and giving some credit to Jesus, that's really what it's all about. We are co-conspirators, we are co-creators in this. And as soon as you realize that, then life can become a whole lot more fun, rather than the sort of old Christian doctrine of worship and like, oh, I'm here to worship the Lord. He's your mate, he's your old friend, and he wants to work with you. And so does she, the goddess, which is an important part of this book as well, because Yeshua was part of a group called the Essenes, and they have a massive amount of respect for the divine feminine, the sacred divine mother. Equally, also, they refer to God as the God, goddess, or as the father, mother. It's always both genders. It's always, it's always with respect to both genders, because to be whole and to be of Christ Magdalene consciousness, you need to have both halves of that whole. You need to have the masculine and the feminine. And really, we've been in a very patriarchal, misogynistic era, particularly with the religions, which are all really misguided. You know, a lot of people are going to be upset when, you know, they believe that it's the word of God, but really it's all been a bit misunderstood, I think. And there will come a time now that, according to this book, there's lots of treasures hidden, particularly to be found at this time and to be brought to light at this time. And we're going to learn what, you know, what Jesus and his followers and the whole group of them, and what God really did want for us, because now is the right time for us to find out.
That's right. And I had yesterday, I had this information come to me that the whole book, so the whole story on Adam and Eve, it probably is literal, but also that if we take it into a perspective of, we are both the masculine and feminine, we are both Adam and Eve. Our spirit is the masculine that fills the feminine. You know, when you talk about anything, you have masculine and feminine. The man always goes inside the woman. The masculine always goes in the feminine. You look at electrical sockets, you look at anything. When you're working with any kind of tool, it's always masculine goes into the feminine. There's a reason for that. The penis goes into the vagina. The feminine is the physical body that we are in. That is the feminine, and the spirit is the masculine. So when we refer to God as he, we're talking about the spirit. But as you were saying, it is the combining of the two, of the female body, of being human and controlling your need for sin, because as Eve wants to eat the apple, your body wants to sin. But as the spirit, Adam can take control and tell the body, no, your masculinity can tell your femininity what to do and how to do it. And we have taken the concept of that in culture and made it so that men are telling women what to do, rather than having it as a story for each individual person to, that's how you control your urge for sin versus what is good for you. And you have the feminine obey the masculine of yourself. You don't allow yourself to give into these urges that aren't good for you. You have to take a step back and control that. From the masculine controls that. So the way that it's been interpreted is exactly wrong. But it's not that the woman needs to obey a man. It's not that Mimi needs to obey me. It's that my body needs to obey my spirit, just as her body needs to obey her spirit. You know, it's masculine and feminine. So you're definitely right on, everything has been misunderstood, misconstrued purposely, probably some of it, but just in a perspective type of deal, I think it has happened mostly, because if you talk to someone, you're going to think there's no way they're going to be like, oh, I was misled. But what they're going to say is their perspective, and their perspective of events makes them believe that it's talking about, you know, a man is supposed to do this and a woman's supposed to do this. And that's when you get the patriarchy.
Yeah, but it's a partnership, isn't it? It's that, and that's what works best. I mean, we've seen the divine feminine rising for a long time now. I mean, I forget which year the suffragette movement was in this country, but women never used to be able to vote in this country, and they had to campaign, and they were, you know, there was some real sort of acts of martyrdom to draw attention to it. You know, back in the 80s, we used to have beauty contests when women would parade around in bikinis, you know, and they'd get asked dumb questions and they'd be made out to look like, you know, just bimbos. Whereas now that would never fly these days. I used to get, like, they stopped them, you know, like the girls walking around the ring in boxing with the numbers, all that kind of thing. You know,
they still do that here in the States.
Do they do that? I think it's on borrowed time. A lot of places have stopped it. and generally, you're seeing women with more important jobs, and you're seeing women in mixed martial arts and boxing now. It was thought, oh, women can't fight. Of course they can fight. Maybe they want to fight. It's up to them. If they want to fight, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's like a healthy sport, and it's in a controlled environment. There used to be a lot more thought that, oh, women can't do this and men can do this, but everything's becoming more in balance now, and it's going to increase, and it's going to snowball in terms of speed, the way that comes back into alignment over the next few years.
Yeah, well, when I look at the media that that's being put out there, when Cardi B is being worshipped, it's really disgusts me, and how they tell girls that you empower yourself by showing off your nudity, that by using sex, that is empowering. That is the exact opposite. It's perversion. And they do that, and then they have a male castrate himself and then go into fight women. This is happening in
I
this
know,
day and
yeah,
age.
that is
It's
outrageous.
sick. It's
That's
absolutely
the
sick what
transhuman
they're doing to
agenda.
women. Yeah.
That's the transhuman agenda, which is purely of the Antichrist stream. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
we all
It's
know who's behind all that kind of thing.
yeah, it's some really horrible stuff, but enough about that. I want to get back into you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
why
Yeah.
don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your awakening, and
Well, I think the story of how we met is quite interesting,
okay.
because you and I were on a free Q&A call from Amy Belair, who was introducing one of her new courses earlier this year.
Right.
And I went on and I thought, I'm not feeling very good, but I've done one of Amy's courses before and it was really good for me, and I think I'm going to do this. I'll go on the call. And then suddenly I saw this message come up, and you were very polite. You said, "I'm sorry to be forward, but I've noticed someone on this call has got some disease in the top left of their lung." And I was breathing in and I felt it in my lung, and I thought, yeah, that's me. Anyway, I didn't engage with you then at that point, but I think I sent you a message on Facebook afterwards and said, oh yeah, that was me in that call that's got the dodgy lung. And we had a bit of back and forth. You sort of give me some advice on breathing and how to get rid of it. And then one day I was looking at a message from someone else. I read the message and I put my phone down, and I must have accidentally rung you. Although, there's no such thing as an accident.
Yeah, that was no accident.
And I called you up and we had a chat and stuff, and you didn't sort of offer straight away your services or whatever. We were just friendly chatting. You were just helping me out because, I told you, I opened up to you like I'm sure a lot of people do, because of who you are and the way your energy works. But I find that people open up to me as well, which is quite helpful considering I'm a shadow worker. And we chatted, and eventually I decided I looked at your website and checked out what you do, and I thought, yeah, I like this guy. He's got good energy. And I decided to do your shadow work course, and it started off with your spiritual baptism. Is that right?
Right.
Your spiritual baptism, where you meditate from starting at the root chakra, and you gradually work your way up and clear all your chakras out. And it was fantastic. It was immediately, I had so much gunk in my chakras, particularly my lower three, because I never used to. I've always been up there, doing the fun stuff rather than down there doing the maintenance and dealing with the day-to-day, which is so important. I can't stress enough. If you don't meditate every day and you're looking to awaken spiritually, you really have to, even if you don't like it, and if it's not working for you, then may I suggest you get in touch with Todd, because he taught me a way to meditate that I didn't know. I've been meditating for a while, but yeah, the way you showed me, the way you control the breath, and the way you talked me through it was extremely helpful. And that was the catalyst. That one session there was the catalyst that turned my
You
ship around, so
you
to
were a
speak.
new
Like,
person the next day. The very next
yeah,
day,
I
you were
was.
completely
Yeah,
new.
yeah. I felt connected and grounded to the earth again. And earlier in the year, I wasn't. And I had a spiritual awakening last winter, um, starting sort of around November, December time. And then in January, I heard Amy Belair on the Third Eye Awakening podcast, not the Third Eye Awakening, but on Tinfoil Hat, and she told me about her Third Eye Awakening podcast, and that set me on a quantum leap of awakening. I mean, I kind of heard about like the ascension and stuff a while ago, and I've been gradually waking up for a while, you know, through conspiracies and just from sort of raising my consciousness. And I always knew that before I got into conspiracies, even, I always knew that there was something wrong, something, this don't add up, we shouldn't be living like this is wacky, you know, why do we live in such a, you know, it offended my Christ conscience basically, but I didn't realize what it was at the time. And now my Christ consciousness is becoming more pronounced in me as I awaken. I can see that's what it is, but at the time it was just sort of my innate wisdom telling me, oh, you know, this is not how we should be living, the way we treat the land, the way we treat animals, the way we treat human beings, the way we go to war, everything, you know, there's so many things wrong and so many sinister things about the way we live. And I don't believe the governments are in charge, and they're just really marionettes. They're just a puppet show and basically like lightning rods. So all it is just another puppet gets zapped by lightning and they put another one in there to do their bidding, you know. So yeah, I'm getting sidetracked a bit, but basically, yeah, I started to awaken and had a quantum leap in awakening this year, really. The difference between me now and me 12 months ago is massive. It's just enormous. I'm not that person anymore, really. And I don't look back on myself and criticize myself for the things I used to do. But when things do come up now, because this is part of awakening, things come up. As you ascend in conscious, old memories come up, and then you have to alchemize them. And that's shadow work, basically. And it's a nice, gentle, gradual way of doing it. And when things come up now, I just sort of laugh to myself, really, and think, oh, wow, how different am I now? I don't need to do that anymore. I release you into Christ-type energy. You no longer serve me. Straight into that violet flame.
Well, it's a hugely important what you said, in that you have to be at peace with yourself, the person that you were, the things that were going on in your life, that things you don't want to do any longer. You have to stop doing them. That's the whole transmuting process, is to first recognize what you did wrong. Secondly, apologize to whoever, you know, maybe it's yourself, maybe it's the earth itself, maybe it's another person, maybe it's an animal, whatever. Just apologize. So you recognize it, apologize for it, and then next time it happens, you recognize what you're about to do and don't do it. It's
Yeah,
as simple as that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it takes the recognition, and in order to have the recognition, you have to study your patterned behaviors, and you do this by meditating daily. As you were saying, you have to be still as everything else shakes off of you. You know, there's this process
yeah,
happening
yeah,
where we have to be a tree in the wind, and the wind is going to knock off all of our branches that are dead and no longer serve us. But we have to hold strong onto what our new foundation is.
yeah. And you can call forward Saint Germain, you can call forward Yeshua, Jesus, you can call forward Isis, Shekinah, you can call anyone, any one of those, and you can blow it in their face when you meditate, and I'll take it away from you. You can give it to Gaia. There's a multitude of ways of doing it. Gaia will grow a flower with it. quite
Yeah.
old. Use it,
I
use
I
that
only
energy for good.
I only use Jesus because there's so many things that have happened in my life that I realized that I was having people interpret things for me. When I was getting the news from the news rather than from, the direct documents themselves. Someone was reading it and then interpreting it for me. When I would take, my car to the mechanic, I'm having them interpret for me. When I'm doing, I'm having someone come out to fix this thing, I'm having them interpret for me. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that stuff anymore. I want to interpret for myself. So I'm going to educate myself. And what I did in terms of Jesus is that I found the straight source was Jesus. And so when we meditate, with my program, when we clear out all the chakras, we're using Jesus. A lot of people,
Yeah.
they do different prayers, they do and they call in different energies, and I'm not judging one energy or another energy,
Yeah.
one name or another name, but I for myself can only know that Jesus is who he claims he is, or who everyone claims he is, because I have experienced him, and that is pure source. It is
Yeah.
pure love. And so that's why I only go to that, because everything else can be hidden. There is darkness can be hidden in other light. Not that those other beings or energies can't help you, but for me, I only use Jesus because there's nothing hidden within Jesus Christ. So that's why I use him. But I wanted to
That's
go back. Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to when you said when I messaged in the group. So I was saying, all of a sudden I took a deep breath in. I looked down at my phone and I saw who was all on there. You can swipe across to see how many people are on there and all. And I guess I made eye contact with you, and I took a deep breath in, and then all of a sudden I could feel my left lung, and I was like, yeah, I don't. And we didn't know each other, and I didn't know it was you because I swiped through everybody. But I was like, yeah, there's this dis-ease in your lung. Take a deep breath, and I'll try to help you let it go. And I haven't felt that. I don't know if your left lung is any better, but I haven't felt
that's fine.
anything since.
Well, I've given up smoking, so
Okay.
yeah. So that's another thing that I've done recently is given up smoking. I mean, I gave up earlier in the year, and it was when I had a bit of a quantum leap in spiritual awakening. And it's also important to say, I have had a mental breakdown this year, and that is largely due to having poor maintenance of my chakras, not meditating properly and clearing them out. Because
Not being
as soon
grounded.
as I'm grounded, I've ascended higher than I ever did earlier in the year. Earlier in the week, I had so much light running through me, but I was grounded. I felt fine. But earlier in the year, when I had like intense days when the light was really bright, and yeah, I had trouble grounding. I did some daft things that I can't even remember doing.
Yeah,
Some of the
well,
things I can't even remember doing. But
it gets crazy like that. And if you're not grounded, if you're
yeah,
not taking care of yourself, then it's very easy to fall into this trap of mental illness, of
yeah,
being not being able to comprehend everything that's going on around you. This is why I have all my guests at the end of the episodes. I always ask what their grounding technique is, because everybody can use a different technique. And I've
yeah,
had on like 50 guests, there's many different methods that are being
yeah,
offered to people. So that is the most important thing, is to be human. That is the most important part, to treat the feminine in the way that is going to be best. The spirit, the masculine, can't just force the feminine. It has to guide the feminine into, because sex feels really good. Gambling may feel really good. Cheering for your team may feel very good, but those types of things may not be the best thing for you. So the masculine, the spirit, has to gently guide the feminine body into which, it's a male's body as well when I'm saying this. has to guide the body together. It has to be a thing that's done in unison. You guys can't be in battle. Your spirit and body can't be in battle. You have to be
Mm.
mentally aware, and you're physically ready to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of the people I met when I was on psychiatric ward this spring and summer, when I was there for a month or so, basically a lot of them are just ascension symptoms that people are suffering right now. There's higher amounts of light running through people, and they're getting manic because of it. And the mental health industry in the UK is overrun at the moment with people suffering from these sort of things.
Yeah, it drives you
And
crazy when you go to who's supposed to be able to help you, a doctor, and they can't help you. It becomes, that's why I put on my business card that I'm a therapeutic conversationalist, because first we need to talk and find out, what exactly you need. I can't just
yeah,
come in with a magic spell. We have to talk about things, and you have to get these things off your chest. So I
like,
think
yeah,
that that's the most important.
we spoke to each other a fair bit before
Yeah.
before I actually engaged you as a sort of like, employed you, or I became your client, should I say. But yeah, and so it's all onwards and upwards now for me, I guess. But I mean, you never know when you're going to get another dark night of the soul. I wouldn't like to say I've had my last, but I've been through a few of them, and this year's been tough, but I've come a long way, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that other people can learn from where I've gone wrong, and then not have to go through what I've gone through, because it's not been easy. Although I'm not gonna make out it's been like really difficult. It wasn't so bad, but I could have been gentler with myself, put it that way. But earlier in the year, I did say to my guide, to my higher self, I said, listen, I think I'm a bit late to this party. We need to get on with this. We can go as quick as you like. And look what happened.
Mental
I learned real
breakdown,
quick.
check.
But like I say to people now, my ego is strapped in the back seat of the car, still very much alive, and still opens his mouth regularly and makes his feelings known. And if I'm not careful, he can take his belt off and sneak through and grab hold of the steering wheel again when I'm not, before I've realized it. So I'm trying to keep the ego in check, and trying to listen to my feelings, and just do the simple thing of being grateful and being in gratitude and love every day, and holding that frequency, and co-creating and manifesting good things, and keeping myself well maintained. And that's really it in a nutshell. If you can do all that, then your life's going to take an uptick, and you just have to go with the flow then, I guess.
Yeah. The thing with the ego is that it's so encompassing, and yet it's still so much smaller than the spirit. Because so the ego itself, I look at the physical body as the ego, and we have how many days of the year? There's 365, sometimes 366. And we have, if you take a full circle, is 360 degrees. All right, so if you can imagine that they're one and the same, and that there's 360 versions of yourself, then there's 4 versions of you that are holier than thou, and then there's one version of you that is the reckoning. I can't even say the word, that is going to get you from the end point all the way back to the beginning point. Imagine you're running a race from left to right, and then you have to
Right.
get all the way back, the reckoning. So if you can imagine that, so there's 360 different versions of you. Every single day you wake up, you're in a new ego, you're in a new part of your body, a new body completely, actually. And it takes 7 years. 7 is the completion number. It takes 7 years to completely change every cell in your body from one to the next. So it takes 7 February 1st in order to make February 1st a completed day for you. that then you can
Right.
then live in peace. So if you're doing that for every single day, because each year, each day stacks on top of itself, if you can do that for 7 years, you can really remake yourself and remake your life. And it's the spirit has to be the guiding force. That's why there have to be certain things that you do on a daily basis, like meditation, as you were saying. There has to be that the spirit gets control of the body, because, and not just the 365 days that I was saying for the body, for the ego, I mean, but there's also all of your emotions are each their own personality. So, you have anger today, you might be angry, you might be sad, and you might be confused all in one day. Well, you're a different personality each time, so your ego is so encompassing that it is its own thing completely, but it will listen to your spirit if your spirit is strong enough to take control of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Where did you get that 360 thing from? Did that come to you in a meditation?
It just came to me yesterday when I put out that Adam and Eve video on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, it
I,
just
I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, it was just a 4-minute thing. It came to me that
Okay.
everybody is Adam and Eve, and there's 360 degrees in a circle, and that's how many days that there are. Well,
Yeah.
it's a whole complicated thing of the way that I've learned that, but I knew that beforehand, that the ancients used to keep track of time from the book of Enoch. They used to keep track of 360 days, and then there were 4 days, one for each of the 4 seasons, were for a quote unquote god. So they weren't numbered days, they were named days. And
So
then
that would be the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices, would it?
correct. And then
Right.
the day of the Lord is the day of reckoning, which is the last day of the year, or the first day of the year, however you want to view it. And then that 366th is once every 4 years, because it's the moon is a full moon. A moon has 4 phases, so that goes with the lower light that is in you. So if you imagine the sun is the higher light, and the lower light, the moon, gets 1 day every 4 years of you. So, there's when we have different energies happening on different days, I know that a lot of Christians want to say, that's astrology, blah, 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 this and that, which they're right. But it's also true, that that's how it works. The consciousness that it builds on top of each other. So when we don't understand something and we call it evil out of a place where we're afraid, then it's not a complete statement, because we have to inform ourselves in all these different areas, different arenas, and we have to not come from a place of fear, because anything that brings me fear, I don't have any fear any longer. But
No.
when I was still having it, when I would have fear and I'd recognize that I'm having fear, I'd be like, oh, that's not real, because it's making me afraid. If it's something that makes me afraid, it's not coming from a real logical place. It's coming from a fear place, which I don't
Mhm.
operate out of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a good place to operate out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going back to that book about the grandmother of Jesus. There was one initiation in that book that Yeshua had to do, where they had to swim through a crocodile infested tunnel and go from one side and come out the other side. And it was basically exactly a test of fear, to see if you believed that you were protected and you had nothing to worry about, and you didn't show any fear, then you'd be fine.
Hmm.
And conversely, if you had fear, then you wouldn't be. And one of the crocodiles would eat you, I guess. But I mean, that's a pretty tough initiation to have to go through, and you'd have to be an absolute master in your control of your emotions to even think to attempt something like that.
I
But it
guess that's probably
just goes to show the power of manifestation and the power of fear and the power of not being in fear.
right. And that probably has a major part to do with walking on hot coals. That's what I've been seeing lately is, if you're not afraid, then you're not going to get hurt no matter what it is you do. When sometimes my job is, I can get hurt. I'm a truck driver. So there's things that happen that I can get hurt. But when I have no fear completely, like there is a difference. I can feel a difference in my frequency, in my
Mm,
being, when I am without fear and I'm just moving, throughout, and I can do different things like, oh, I'm not going to get hurt no matter what. So I go and do it and I don't get hurt. But if I'm to stop and think about and contemplate it, then I'm not trusting in the Lord. And therefore, then I have an opportunity to get hurt. Doesn't mean I will get hurt, but it means I have the opportunity to do so.
yeah, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
so, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
So,
powerful thing, and
yeah.
and to do to I'm scared of plenty of things. I'm scared of heights. I know you're not good with heights. You were talking about that when you went up in the helicopter.
Right.
I am, like, I don't want to be within 5 meters of a cliff edge. Like, if I was 4 meters away from a cliff edge, that's too close, man. Get me away from it. Just get me
Yeah.
away from it, please.
Well, say that's another thing is overcoming our fears and having trust. I'm afraid of heights. And last year I was up on the roof putting up Christmas lights and I was up on the peak and I had to reach my arm around the side and I was putting lights on, hooking lights on nails that were already there. And Mimi was down in the yard yelling up to me, move it left, move it right, move it up, move it down. She's giving me directions because I couldn't bear to look because I was so afraid. We didn't have a ladder that was tall enough to reach up there, so I had to literally. I was on the roof and then I was all cut up on my chest afterwards because I
Oh
was.
man,
Well, I mean, not like cut up, but like brush burn type of deal because I was moving around like that. But it was a scary thing for me. But it was so rewarding when I finished. I got real anxious and nervous at one point and Mimi was talking to me, like she was getting frustrated that I wasn't putting it in the right spot, and I had to stop myself and take a deep breath. And when I did it, I felt the wind was just like calming. It was like, see, if you just relax, everything will be okay. And
yeah,
then from there, I was a boom, 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 put it all on all the right way, and when you're facing a fear like that, it's not an easy thing to do. So, she was getting upset with me, not because I was doing it wrong, but because, I was on edge. So when she's telling me left, I'm like, I am going left, like it's, so,
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
what we do when we're on edge, because I was in a different personality than what is my typical personality. So I had to face that fear and I conquered it and I'm a better person for it now. It doesn't mean I have to go back up on the roof again, but at least I conquered the fear for that moment.
yeah, yeah. So do we have to conquer all our fears to achieve mastery again, as we remember our mastery? Do we
I
have to
don't
go
know.
through everything? I don't know.
Maybe some of us, maybe not
Yeah,
everyone.
some things, I guess, some things are going to be. I mean, just doing shadow work's tough enough sometimes. Like,
Oh
and when
yeah.
it comes to doing the shadow work for the human collective, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Do we all do it together? Or do the ascended masters come down and just alchemize it all for us, or what? I don't know how all that's supposed to go down, but
Well, I think that we probably all eventually at some point we all do it all ourselves, but we can't just do it ourselves. We need guidance from everyone else, people who have walked the path before us. We need to look to them and we also
yeah,
need to use the energy of Jesus Christ or whoever someone wants to get in touch with. You need to use that energy to be guided. The best way to guide ourselves. I wear this bracelet, WWJD. What would Jesus do? And the way that I look at it is inside of our mind, we have a conscience that tells us when we do something wrong and when we do something right. Maybe it doesn't
mhm.
speak up when we do something right, but when we do something wrong, we know it. And we have a
Oh yeah,
guilty conscience because of it, because that is Jesus talking to us. That is
yeah.
God talking to us, telling
That's
us,
Christ consciousness, yeah,
yeah.
inside you, telling you that is
Mhm.
that is all. We should say Christ Magdalene consciousness if we're going to be like the Essene, like Jesus, like Yeshua was with them. They called it the Christ Magdalene consciousness, which
Okay.
represents the masculine and the feminine. which I'm all about at the moment, as you know.
Yeah, well, I have the book Jesus and the Essenes. I haven't read it yet, but I do have it. You know, I have
That's
so
Dolores
many books.
Cannon, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Dolores Cannon, right?
Yeah, I'm going to read that next. I think I'm on the second one at the moment. It's Anna, the Voice of the Magdalens, the sequel to
Uh,
the one I've just read about her being
Mimi,
Jesus' grandmother.
Mimi, Mimi wanted me to tell you that her book is. She ordered the second one. It should be arriving today.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I think you should read both books as well. I think you'll love them. Honestly think you'll love them. Maybe you want
Yeah,
the audio book
yeah.
versions
I
for
have
when
like
you're in your truck.
5 books in my queue. You know, my waiting list. I have so many books that I've ordered, and I haven't even gotten a chance to read. I wish everything could be audio because being a truck driver
Yeah.
is not helpful for reading books.
Well, no. And you're so busy with your podcast and other things outside of work at the moment. I'm not surprised you don't have the time to read. So you'll have to get the audiobook versions of them.
Yeah,
That's really the way to go
I'll
for
see
you.
if they're out there.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Sure they are. But yeah, it was I've never been so compelled to finish a book so quickly as that one. It was it was lighting me up the whole time I was reading it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I don't want to start giving loads of revelations away from it because I'm sure there's plenty of other people who want to read it and enjoy it, and I don't want to spoil it for them. But it's just loaded with stuff, man. Absolutely loaded with stuff.
And Mimi said the
And
same thing that how she was reading it. It was she was being drawn to read it, you know, read it constantly, and then she was getting the chills all throughout. And she was, I've never seen her more excited to tell me information. You know, I'm always like telling her these things, and then she was telling me all these new things, and the excitement that she had was very very warm, and it was very I her state of being raised as when she was reading that.
yeah. I mean, I felt like I was in sort of a bit of a nirvana state for a few days
Wow.
afterwards as well. For about 3 days afterwards, I was just fantastic. This is because it talks about this time. A lot of it refers to this time and what's going to happen. And sort of, there's a few sort of little teasers, like, well, this is a special time and things are going to, but I can't tell you any more than that for now, sort of thing. But I just, I mean, I'm happy in the present, but I'm so excited for what's to come at the same time.
All right,
I'm
well,
so
why don't we
excited.
get into that? So what's your take on the time that we're in and where we're going, headed, blah blah blah, you know, whatever we're saying, you know, this type of information, what is your take on all of it?
Well, I think it's very difficult to know. I keep wondering. I think I keep hearing different things. I've heard there's 144,000 ascended masters incarnated as ascended masters on the earth at the moment. I've also heard that there are more ascended masters in the spiritual realm than there are human incarnations on this earth, which is mind-blowing to think. And I think a lot of the incarnations on this earth are, if you think about it, if there's no time in the spiritual realms, then you've done everything, know everything, and you've already achieved your mastery. And as you ascend back to connect to that consciousness, you're going to remember becoming an ascended master. And I think there are many, many, many ascended masters here on the earth. Many. I mean, I don't know how it works if you're in your first incarnation. Can you be an ascended master, or do you get restricted on what you can remember? Do you have to go through so many lifetimes before you do it? I don't know how it all works. But yeah, that's something that fascinates me. I keep hearing that word ascended master and it gives me chills. I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what they are. I've heard that you have to ascend 13 times to do it, to achieve mastery. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't really know. What fascinates me is how everything's going to change and how life's going to collapse for some people and how it's going to go back to being more simple and more loving and more about community and us all working together rather than this sort of individualist capitalistic kind of mentality that is in most countries, pretty much all of them. Anyone that they've tried to influence is ended up that way.
Even if
And
the country isn't capitalist, the people who are
yeah,
running it are, it
yeah,
doesn't matter what they call it, communism, socialism, capitalism.
yeah,
There's class rankings basically. And if you ain't in the club, you ain't in it, and you ain't ever going to get in it.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. It certainly seems to be the case. But the thing is, now we see the light shining on the dark, and there's things coming out. There's over here in the UK at the moment, there's police officers getting caught for doing horrible crimes, which
Really?
like murders and
Oh, wow.
beatings. Yeah, there's some horrible things coming out, and there's this has been the trend. We've seen celebrities getting caught. We've seen well-known figures getting accused of all sorts of nefarious things, whereas none of that would even, we'd have even heard about that years ago. Like
Right.
back in the 70s and 80s. I don't know if you heard of Jimmy Savile. Have you heard of Jimmy Savile?
Yeah.
That famous paedophile from our country who was like a children's entertainer.
Yeah. He was a DJ for radio, and he was
That's right. Yeah.
good friends
And
with the Queen and all that.
yeah, good friends of Prince Charles. He actually was apparently used as a go-between between Charles and Diana when they were having marital problems, and he was sort of like sent to talk to her to try and sort of smooth things over. That was the alleged closeness of the relationship that he had with Charles. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's something I heard. And he used to go for regular Christmas dinners with the Queen, apparently. But yeah, these sort of things, the light's shining on them now, and there's going to be more and more of it. We all know this. It's coming. The darkness is the shadow is being brought into the light, and we're going to see more and more of it. And unfortunately, there are some really disgusting, quite abhorrent, putrid, ghastly things going on all around the world that a lot of people don't know about. And people are going to find out about them. They're going to be horrified, unfortunately.
Yeah, and anybody who is unfamiliar with the child abuse that is so rampant, and maybe you don't want to go into all the darkness because it's very hard to handle. But if you want to look into something, look into Jimmy Savile. And it's very widely known that he was a very well-known pedophile, and he was connected to all of the famous people, all of the royals. He was essentially the Jeffrey Epstein of England years before Jeffrey Epstein, that type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was also a black magician.
Yeah, that's what it goes
Apparently
hand in hand.
he was the seventh son of the seventh son, whatever that means.
Okay.
But apparently that means something in black magic. Like,
Seven, the
I don't know.
number of completion. 49 is 7 times 7. So there's a lot of that's why it's so hard for regular everyday people to get a hold of it, because it's symbolism. It is numbers, it's numerology, it is the different shapes and geometry. There's so much to it that we just, as regular people, we're like, when I was asleep, if somebody would have told me that, I would have been like, that kind of just sounds made up, because it doesn't sound like something that's real. But once you start to look into it, once you find out that there's a connection, that magic is real, and there's a connection between consciousness and the purity of an individual, then it makes all the sense in the world that, they would use the most pure people, which are children, in order to receive the most pure consciousness, so that they can and who knows what exactly is going on. I got a lot last year in my meditations, just psychically picking up things that the sex of the pedophilia part is like only the first rung on a 5 rung ladder of what children are being abducted for. That there's many darker things that we're
Yeah,
not ready to
yeah.
even, as a conspiracy theorist community, we're not even really ready to talk about.
I expect they're
So
farming children for their adrenaline glands.
yeah,
I
yeah, well, that
I
was
wouldn't,
one of
you
them.
know, if you can imagine it, they're doing it
Yeah, and there's
basically.
so much more darker things that
Oh
are
yeah, yeah.
that it's
This
really
is this is
sick.
this is what I think. Not everyone needs to know everything.
Right.
I think some of us are going to go in and do the dirty work with some of the shadow work, and those that are more robust and are less triggered by it will be the ones who can deal with doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it isn't for everybody, and it's a very tough thing. And we don't all need to go through all of the experiences. There's so many different awful things that can happen to you in this world, and nobody goes through all of them. So, what happens to you and what you're going through is for you. And everyone really, the way to transmute is to really focus on yourself and to clear out yourself. And once you get to that point and you're completely clear, then you can start assisting others.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it all starts with you first of all, 100%. And yeah, I'm I'm definitely a work in progress. I'm definitely still in my baby walker, or teeter totter as you call it in the States. I'm still got my training wheels on, man, for sure. I tried to run before I could walk earlier in the year, and I ended up flat on my face, brother, with a big old broken nose.
Do you want to tell that story, or do you want to keep that to yourself?
Well, I mean, I kind of went into it earlier. It was really, when I had my manic episode, and I can't really go into too much details about it
Okay.
because there may be some pending action to follow.
Okay.
I may have to make an appearance in court, so I shouldn't really discuss it. But safe to say, I I got manic and started acting unconsciously, and a lot of my friends noticed, and I didn't have a clue. And it was when I wasn't grounded, and when I was finding it hard to assimilate all the light that was coming through me, because it was huge, and I got really high and ended up doing things, like I said earlier, that I can't remember.
Right.
And and I can't really. I mean, basically, there was a traffic incident that was really daft. I can talk about it in general terms, where I ended up in a traffic incident, and um, I thought I was in a computer game, and yeah,
And so
basically,
it became like a nihilism type of thing, that you didn't really care about the consequence, that, or you thought that there was maybe no consequence.
yeah. So I think so. Yeah, I think that's what I must. Although I can't remember my state of mind at the time, I think that is kind of that's the only way I can kind of make sense of what I did, because it
Yeah.
was stupid.
Right. And when we
But
have Neil deGrasse Tyson and Elon Musk and people like this talking about the simulation theory and saying uh, we're in some alien's computer,
yeah,
on some
oh
far off
yeah, yeah,
planet,
yeah, yeah.
that's what that type of thinking leads to, is like, oh, nothing matters,
I
I can
never
just
thought
do
that.
whatever.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
never.
didn't mean that's what you were
Yeah,
thinking, but
yeah,
that's the type of thinking that they
yeah,
can bring that on to people by putting it out into the universe. It can still reach you even if you're not buying in for word with
yeah,
what they're saying, but that line of thinking
yeah,
can reach us.
yeah, yeah. It is true that we can do what we want here, and there's not really any sin. We're not really judged for what we do, but at
Well,
the
I'd
end of the
say
day, you have to act consciously. There's karma. There's 100% there's karma. That's
yeah, there's
totally
definitely
different.
karma, yeah.
That's not a
But
judgment thing.
say I used to, I thought that for a little bit too, that there was no sin, but there is. This so what I've come to learn is that this
But
isn't a
but
place
but
of duality.
who decides it's a sin? Because if you're going to decide it's a sin, then you've made a judgment, and you're
Uh,
not supposed to judge.
right. So it's not us that's making the judgment. We judge ourselves ultimately when we have the higher perspective. So when you are going through your life review, you are judging every interaction that you do with people. And you, maybe Jesus is next to you, maybe it's nobody next to you, but you're judging it from an unbiased perception. So you're saying, could I have acted better there? And if you judge that yes, you could have, then maybe it wouldn't be called sin, but that is the judgment. That's where it comes from. But
Yeah.
there is a higher perspective. There is good and there is evil. And we as humans, we are very limited in our capacity. And we as humans can't be judging other people, but we also can't be participating in things.
No.
There's a reason why we're sitting here talking about how awful Jimmy Savile was, because they were ghastly sins that he was committing. So while we have to walk that fine line between not judging people, there is definitely a point that we draw the line in the sand and say, no, this isn't good, this isn't good, this isn't good.
Yeah, we have to make judgments about what is, I mean, basically what is of Christ Magdalene consciousness and what isn't. And really, what isn't of Christ Magdalene consciousness is not what we should be about. We should be about the divine, because what we're trying to do essentially is come from a place of low density and extreme duality, and we're trying to recover our divinity. That's the goal in this, is to become divine again.
Right.
When we all start walking around wearing white robes and glowing and like looking like we've got a halo, but it's our light body that we can see.
Yeah, well, that would be super cool. I mean, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, are we going to lose our physical bodies? I think that maybe there's a possibility that there's some kind of solar flash that happens and hits the whole earth at once, and then everybody dies simultaneously. Or maybe it has happened. I've also had that thought that it already has happened before, and that we're all in the state of eventually, because it happened so quickly, that none of us realize the change, because everything still seemed the same. And maybe someday our physical bodies are just going to fall off of us, and our spirits are going to be there in some way. I don't know. It's a weird thought, but it's a possibility.
Interesting one. Another one that I think is fascinating is that we came here this time in this one to change the timeline slightly, because if you think back to Nostradamus, he did predict a nuclear apocalypse, didn't he? In the 80s. Was it 85? He said it was going to be somewhere around then.
I'm not sure. Wonder if the way that's interpreted is all over the place. People use that to whatever they
maybe.
Want. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know, but I just wonder if there was an apocalypse and we came back to stop it from, or to change the timeline so it never happened in the future.
That's definitely possible. I definitely feel like that's a possibility and you and I have talked about this, that I feel that maybe the version of me that existed at one time, Todd Armstrong, was about to die, and then whoever I am now came into the body and assumed the life of Todd Armstrong. And now when I look at it, I am so far different from what I once was. It's a possibility that it could have been some kind of time travel thing, that I came from the future and I entered into a person who was dying and used their life and their experiences in order to transmute all of their negative energy to help heal the rest of the world.
Just got a yes on that.
Yeah, because I've said that I watch the show Travelers and I feel like I am a traveler. The way that it happens very quickly in that show, and obviously I don't have all the memories and everything that goes on with the show. It's a TV show and it's very quick paced, but it feels very much like that type of deal happened, that a consciousness switch happened right when, because there was many events in my life that Todd Armstrong should have died. I should have, or maybe could have, maybe not should have, but could have at least died several different times. I mean, so there are many possibilities.
I did die when I was 24.
Yeah, we talked about this as well. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, why not? I got very depressed after going out and doing some psychedelics and going to a rave. And I kind of saw everything from a really high perspective while I was under the influence of these psychedelics. And I got really depressed afterwards when I came back down, and I could just see all the toxic, putrid stuff in the world that I was less conscious of before, and it really, really depressed me. And I went. Also, I recently moved out from my mother's, because I moved back in with my mother for a couple of years while I was at catering college learning to be a chef. So, and my mother has always been my life support system, you know, like she was really the place where I got my love, and not all that many other places could I find that. Well, not nowhere else could I find it like I got from my mother. So I ended up getting really depressed. I'd seen things from a different perspective, and I think I was about 4 or 5 days without actually sleeping a wink, and I was in a real mess. And I just thought, I can't take this anymore, and I decided to slash my arms up, try and bleed myself out. And I did it one afternoon when I was on my break, because like you work lunchtime, you go for a break and you come back in and you do the dinner shift. And I was on my break, and I decided that was it. I said, I'm done. I'm going back home. And I didn't feel like I was killing myself and ending everything and there was just going to be black nothing. I knew there was an afterlife of some sort. I knew that it wasn't the end, and I knew it was kind of like just sort of like ending this story here about Malcolm, and that there would be some, hi Mimi, and there would be some, you know, there would be something else after it. So anyway, it didn't work, and I bled out quite a bit. I was lying in bed, and one of my friends came to find me because it had gone past the time when I was due at work, and he came and knocked on the door. And for some reason I decided, well, I'm gonna have to ask him to help me, because this hasn't worked, you know. I should be dead. I bled out, and there was pints of blood all over the place. I'm sorry if this is really gross, but basically I asked the guy for help, and he kicked the door down, and he wrapped me up in some towels to stop the bleeding, and he called an ambulance, and the ambulance came. Now I remember them lifting me out of bed into like a wheelchair, and then as soon as I sat in the wheelchair, everything went black. And then the next thing I knew, I came around and the wheelchair was tilted back, so my back was actually resting on the ground, and my legs were up there like that kind of thing. My head was here, and then all of a sudden I came around, but I didn't just sort of like come around and just open my eyes. I came around like like that, and I think I was resurrected. In fact, I've had it confirmed that I was resurrected and brought back to life, and I could taste the prana immediately in the air from that first breath when I came round, and I felt different.
Wow.
So I said to the guys, I said to the ambulance guys and the guy who helped me, my colleague, I said, what happened? And they said, oh, you just passed out for a few seconds. But it didn't feel like a few seconds to me. It felt like I'd been gone for days somehow. Even though it was all black and I had no memory of anything else, it felt like I was gone for a long time. And yeah, I think I was given a second chance, basically.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing that story. You know, that is not an easy thing to talk about. Suicide attempt, as severe as yours was, as close, and you're suggesting that you may have died, which is a very a very large possibility. And I want to thank you for sharing that. It's not easy, and I hope that someone out there that hears this and is maybe thinking along those terms can use Malcolm's story as a deterrent from trying to do, end your life. So, uh, when you were getting into this, what in it, was there one overarching thing that led you to doing this, or was it just that you realized the world was so shitty that
Yeah,
you?
yeah, it was kind of like I saw too much too soon and I couldn't take it. It was just too horrific. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was meant to do it in some ways, and I was meant to be brought back. It kind of felt like when I came back, I was a different person. I had a lot of strength that I didn't have before. A lot of, I don't know. I didn't go for any counseling afterwards, which seems weird, but I just didn't feel like I needed it. I just thought, well, okay, I tried to kill myself, didn't work. And it took a little while to adjust and come back, to like being myself. I was mortified of what my parents felt about it, because obviously they were so horrified. But I've always been one of those kind of guys who thinks he can deal with everything himself. And I've learned over the years that that's not a good way to go. It's always better to chat things over with a friend and stuff. And I was lucky. I mean, I don't know whether maybe I'm imagining it that the way I came back round, but it felt to me like I was resurrected and
You're given a second chance. Yeah,
given a second chance. Yeah,
that's
yeah, for
amazing.
sure.
And to the audience, Mimi walked in. She was
I made
working,
it.
and Mimi
Hi, Mimi. Did
came.
Hi.
you have a good paint party?
I did.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Malcolm, we were talking about Anna a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was, dropping some truth on me, and I was saying how
I'm glad it came from you.
no, that so I was telling him how you also were drawn to this book to read it in a consistent basis more so than other books, and how you were very much more excited in how you were presenting me with the new ideas and all that, and how you kept getting the chills while reading this, because Malcolm was saying that's what was going on with him.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about it now. Oh, I feel like I'm echoing big time.
You're fine. I don't hear you.
When you were reading that, does it have almost like its own secret society feel? With the initiations and it feels like maybe that was a secret society. And is that secret society related to any of these ones that we talk about? It's very thin line to me, it seems.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, they had to be secret because they were thought of as
Right.
heretic, and
Well,
Right.
that's the same thing Freemasons will tell us today.
Well, right. And that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking is everybody's so secret, but maybe at some point they had to be,
Oh, they had to be so secret. I mean, if you've read it till the end now, haven't you? So
I have.
You know the bit that happened to them in Alexandria when the Romans found out basically that they were, the Romans found out some stuff. I don't want to try and give it all away, really. I don't want to spoil it. Basically, the Romans made an attempt on their lives, didn't they? What they did to them, they basically they threw them up shit creek without a paddle, literally.
Sure did.
But and they really did have to keep everything so hush hush, and so they lived underground, man. They lived underground. They were like mold, working away on their scriptures and hiding stuff away. Now, I think a lot of their stuff was found when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. But then, like, we heard about it, and then nothing really came of it. It was all kind of squirreled away. But that's the kind of, I think that's the kind of stuff that is, and they've hidden stuff all over the world with different, like the Druids in the UK and the Essene communities around the world. And I believe that all that stuff is still safe somewhere. and it's going to come out. And, oh man, how exciting would that be when we can finally get to read all that delicious stuff, you know?
If it's a
All
big
those
old
secrets.
if.
Oh, I'm sure, you know, my faith in the goddess tells me that stuff is going to be protected and somehow will survive.
And it almost makes me wonder if like every secret society that we think is nefarious really is nefarious, or if they really think that they are doing something
Oh, they
good.
think that they're doing something
There
good,
were some
but they know that they're doing
initiations
some
that were
evil shit.
dangerous, like very dangerous and hurtful to other people. I mean, there are those initiations in this book. So it makes me wonder.
Well, they definitely
yeah.
think that they're doing good, but at the end of the day, you have to do very evil things to get to the highest rankings. And, you know, they are consciously making that decision. And that's where you and I were talking earlier, Malcolm, about duality and good and evil. You know, they draw a line, but the problem with doing that is that we're still in human form. So that maybe in a higher perspective, you know, me doing this and you doing this is a dance, and we need each other to do it. But as humans, no, we don't need it to happen, because, you know, when I look at a newborn baby get smacked on the butt, the baby didn't need to know joy in order to know that's pain. You know, it's so when you take something, when you break it down to its simplest form, when you take something without any concept of duality and you do one thing to it, no matter what that thing is, maybe that baby gets like the ultimate like the best birth ever, and it's the most joyous thing. It didn't need to know pain before that. So when you are a blank slate and you start to feel different things happen to you, you didn't need to know the opposite in order to know what you're experiencing. So when they tell us these things and they keep things hidden secretly, and I haven't read this book, but I would say that's probably why it didn't work if they kept it secret. Because if you, like we're all doing now, we're all bringing everything to the light. I think that is much more effective when you can expose the truth to everybody.
I wouldn't say it didn't work, to be honest with you. I think they're playing the long game more than it didn't work.
Yeah,
right.
I'm
really
so
do.
excited for the second book.
I think that everything has been set up for this time, including, like, you'll know, Mimi, a lot of the work they were doing was encoding the earth, the flora and fauna of the earth and humankind with the codes for ascension. This is when they were doing that work.
And like you said, your own resurrection.
Many ascended masters were light conceived and nurtured and brought up. A whole community of ascended masters, loads of them, all the disciples. And there was 12 disciples that were male, there was 12 disciples that were female, and they were all couples. There was 24 of them. The Last Supper in this book, according to this book, had over 70 guests there at the Last Supper, not just Jesus and the 12 disciples and Mary Magdalene, whatever, you know. And Mary Magdalene, wow.
Right, I'm so excited.
Oh my goodness, what a magnificent woman. You know, she's referred to as a prostitute in the Bible. Fucking prostitute. She's a fucking magnificent being.
But she's
a goddess. Literally. She's a goddess.
It made her look like a bad girl, sort of.
Well, and you know, if my life is reviewed, they're a major part of my life. I was a terrible person. So if someone was to describe me in that way, they wouldn't be wrong. So, you know, there's very likely that she was a prostitute at one time.
Well, you had to probably read the book, because they are brought up from before birth. They're preparing the parents, and then after birth, the lucky thing is they already know that they are here for a purpose. We are all like, what's my purpose? You know, why am I here? They already knew, and they were raised in an environment that did nothing but nourish what they were going to do.
Well, I just don't know how true that book is, and I don't mean to take anything away from you guys, but you know, channeled information is I'm an open channel, and I've had full-blown lies channeled through me.
Yeah,
So,
I've
you
been
know,
tricked. I've been
yeah,
tricked as well, brother.
you get half truths, and you get in order to for you to believe something like
Which
this. But so I'll just say, in my initial thought when you're saying that, is that maybe that's true, but she definitely was someone who fell into the dark side of things, and Jesus brought her back
So there
from the
was
dark
another
side.
man that she was with in the book, right? Before Jesus, Jesus had another girl around him, Miriam. And so they weren't sure who
Yeah,
he was going to go. They knew in the end it was going to be Mary Magdalene, but you know, through your
yeah,
life, you have to kind of come around to that. But what I was going to say to that is, when I mentioned to you that the second book, the foreword or something, mentions that the second book will talk about what happened after the resurrection, about him
Mhm.
moving to France and
Yeah.
and having children with Mary. And
See, I don't think that's true.
I told you that I've read that in several
Yeah, and I don't think
other
any of it's
books.
true.
So
So when he resurrected, he
I think
wasn't.
Jesus definitely has a bloodline. Definitely.
Oh yeah,
He could,
100%.
Definitely.
but I don't think
Several, in
that the
fact.
move into France, yeah. All right, I don't, it's not going to get a whole discussion about
I
this,
mean, if
but
he
I
had a
don't think that
bloodline,
it's
he'd have to
true.
have children, period.
Yeah, but it's after the resurrection, he didn't resurrect in his physical body. The resurrection, he lost the physical body, so he had no capability of making
Oh
children.
man.
So his consciousness can mix with people and beings, but you have to, okay, this going down this line of taking that as gospel compared to the
Not
Bible,
as gospel,
but you are. But when you're saying that,
but you didn't read the book to know the
I
whole where we're
understand
coming
that.
from.
I understand, but
Okay.
there's also, there's you can be misled, and I've heard of all these things of Jesus going to France and having children, and it's just not true that when he resurrected, he wasn't in a physical body. That's not possible for him to have children after that. But I don't want to stay on
Ah.
that topic.
You
So
might have to change your mind on that once you've read the book. I would read the book because I don't want to give away that part of the book. And it also talks much more
Yeah, there
about
was a
that in
lot
the
of
second book.
training that went
Much more
involved.
about that.
A lot
Yeah,
of
they talk
training that
about
was involved for the
because he didn't actually. I believe he never actually died,
right.
and that was the rites
Wow.
of the sepulchre. That it was an illusion.
Correct.
yeah,
It
I'm
was
not
an
getting
illusion.
that. My guides right now are telling me that's not true, that he did
I
die.
don't know whether it's
Yeah,
true.
No, no,
I don't
no.
know whether it's
There
true or
was
not.
training involved with the upcoming crucifixion. He had been training for this crucifixion since childhood. I mean,
so I'll just say this, and then we'll move on,
okay.
because
Yeah,
this
okay.
is we're debating something that no
Yeah,
We
one
don't
has a
know.
exactly. You're right.
definitive answer
You're
to.
right. We
But
don't know. We don't know.
right. We can't have a
It's true.
definitive answer. But I'll say this, that I've come across many things of Jesus in many different forms, and I have never heard once anyone mention that there were mystery schools for all these children and they all knew what they were going to do. I'm not saying that that's not true, but what I am saying is that it's very documented that Jesus was in a family and he became a rabbi at the age of 12. Now, what happened from the age of 13 to 29 is completely unknown. But in my own meditations, I've gotten that he became, and this had nothing to do with his grandmother or any other person in his family, that he left his family. He rebelled against them in a sense to go learn the different traditions of other Eastern
Yeah.
Traveling up the Nile
mythologies
and things like
and
Yeah,
that.
whatnot.
Hinduism, Buddhism. Yeah, he
Right.
did a lot.
And that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, and that Jesus came to her and pulled her out of it. And not, I've experienced these things in my own way, just the way you guys have experienced in your way, and we can have a definitive answer. But I have a hard time believing that this book is gospel, and I know I haven't read it, but you have to check your source, and there's no way to ever know what you're channeling. And this is the reason why I only use Jesus, and that why I harp on this is because you don't know who you're communicating with. And when you're reading someone else's book who was channeling this book, you have no idea who they were communicating with. And what I've learned with the fallen angels is they are going to trick you and give you half truths and and full truths, but then they're going to lead you into a direction that is a false direction. So I just, you guys obviously do as you wish, but I I know Jesus didn't resurrect. He did, his physical body died, and that's why consciousness took the form of Jesus Christ, and why consciousness itself made us idolize Jesus Christ, because humanity needs an idol to worship. And Jesus became that idol when he died on that cross, and he never took a human body again after that.
I don't think he wanted to be worshipped. I don't think that's got anything to do with it.
Well, it's humanity needs an idol to look up to.
No, I don't think it does need an idol. I think
but,
you need to be your own idol. That's the message.
That's the exact wrong message. No offense, but that is the whole thing that got us. We think that we're gods and that we think that we know good and evil. But then when we do that, we don't though. Then that's why you have
we have that consciousness within all of us. We have that is part of our innate wisdom.
But okay.
And some people have a greater or lesser connection to it depending on their frequency of consciousness. You're not conscious of what you're not conscious of.
Right, but if you're going to say that,
for all of us to have that, and for some of us to still be basically what you would describe as evil and misguided, because
right, but if you're going to say that, then that's how we get into the situation we're in, because Jimmy Savile can say, oh, well, I'm doing what I think is right, but we know that that's not right. So that's
the reason. That reason there is beautiful, because that's why you get to forgive everyone and not judge, and to show love to everyone no matter what they've done, because that's what we're supposed to do. That is what being divine is.
But there is a point where we can't just go along with what's going on.
No, we don't want to go along with that. But when we ascend to the heavenly realms, only those who've done the work and have that consciousness can get in anyway.
Well,
but part of getting to that divinity is to be able to forgive everyone.
Yes, you do have to have the ability to forgive, but when we're human, we do not have the capacity to determine good and evil, because if we did, but we don't. And the reason why is because Jimmy Savile and Aleister Crowley can say that they're doing good. That's the thing. If you're going to say put it on humans, then it doesn't work. None of it works. It's not a dualistic world, and I know where you're coming from. I was in that line of thinking until I learned further information that helped me get to the light. And it's Jesus as the entirety. Humanity needs something to look to, a goal, if you will, an example to be. And that's why when Jesus died, that is the example, that is the idol that all of humanity had to. Consciousness recognized that humanity needed an idol throughout all of history, when they kept making these false idols of all these different gods and beings, and seeing where it got everybody. When Jesus died on that cross, all of consciousness said, this is your idol. This is what you need to look up to. Not all of those other things, because none of those other things are going to help you get to where you want to be. But this one being, this will help you get to where you want to be.
You certainly can do. Yeah, I agree with you. But we're going to have to agree to disagree on the rest of it, I'm afraid, brother.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, I mean, I'm not trying to change your mind or anything, but it's when we start talking about duality as a thing.
Well, that's an interesting one. We spoke about this the other day. Now, I agree with you. It's not supposed to be a dualitous realm. We're supposed to be in the fifth dimension. We're not supposed to be at this low frequency, but down here in 3D, there is very much duality. And apparently this realm of Earth, or Gaia, is got the most extreme polarity between good and bad in the whole universe, in the whole everything. It is the ultimate bad and the ultimate good, basically.
Why we call it an upside
in
down
this
world all the
this
time.
dimension. But like you
it's
say, we're
upside
not
down and
supposed to be in the third dimension. We're supposed to be divine beings in heaven. But I guess we get bored of that. We want to
Well,
come down and
I agree that the
get a
different
bit
dimensions,
mucky.
they work like Inception. You're familiar with the movie Inception? Leonardo
I think I've
DiCaprio.
seen it. Is that the one?
They go into dreams and then further into dreams and further into dreams.
Is that the one where he's behind like the bookcase at the end? It's like
I don't
consciousness is
know.
behind the bookcase. No,
I don't know.
I don't know. I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Fine.
So what they do in Inception is they go to sleep purposely. You know, there's some kind of thing that makes them go to sleep, and then when they're in the first dream layer, then they can go to sleep in that dream and go into a deeper dream. And this is what is I'm going to use as moving down dimensions. So when 1 second in the real world is like 10 minutes in the first dream world, and then it's like 10 hours in the second dream world, and they keep going down further and further, then so 1 second ends up being like 10,000 years or something into the fourth deepest level. So that's how it is down here, is that there's so much that we have to do in order to get to such a tiny portion of time up there. So when we have, say, Mimi and I, say we walk out the door and she falls down, right? Now, in that moment right there, I have the opportunity to help her up, or I can step over her. So if I step over her, then that is not a nice act, right? The nice thing to do would be to help her up. So if we go from there and then drop down a dimension, how much evil is that act alone going to then cause in the lower dimensions, into when time moves much slower, when it's going to be a 1 second, one decision thing, is going to create a lifetime of misery for someone in a lower dimension. So that's how it kind of works. And it's tough to word this without having some kind of visual.
I'm finding it hard to wrap my head around what you're just saying as well, like differences between the dimensions and the times, and how so everything we do affects stuff in other dimensions.
So I'm saying we're the lowest dimension. So when you go up in dimensions, and say you're in the fifth dimension and you do something that's not good to somebody else, right? Then
but is that likely to happen if you're a divine being? Is it possible that you can do bad things?
Because we still have free will, and we have because the fallen angels, they had the option to disobey God and leave the heavenly realm. So we always have free will, and that's the thing, is when you use free will to your own selfish desires, is when you get kicked out of heaven, because you can't exist there, because there's certain things against the rules, and once you do something against the rules up there, then you get sent down here to feel the effects of what you did.
So you don't think that some people are just benevolently offering themselves to come down here and incarnate and help out then? You think that we're all fallen angels? Or do you think there is such a thing as star seeds, and that some of us just said, oh, look, I'm bored here in heaven. I know everything. I've seen everything. It's wonderful to be in these beautiful feelings of love, and, this sort of like intoxicating feeling of joy that we always have. But, I fancy going back down to the lower dimensions to help out humanity to ascend its consciousness to the angelic realms. You don't think that that's why a lot of us are here?
See, the thing with that is that if you are going, and this is why we don't see benevolent ETs, is because you can't break someone else's free will. They can't help us out. Maybe by becoming human, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
by incarnating as humans.
Maybe, but
I think a lot of us came here just to hold the light and hold the space for people, just to be like vessels of light and frequency.
So I think that
a lot of people are here just for that, and a lot of people are here to do more active roles. People like Amy, people like you, You
Well, I'm a
know,
fallen angel, so you know
yeah, but
that's
you're here, and you're set up in business to help people, and
well
you
true,
know,
but I got sent here from
and
doing things incorrectly. Some, you know, I rebelled and left heaven when I
right.
wasn't supposed to. Now that I
So is
think that there,
your consciousness doesn't exist in the angelic realms. You're here, your whole consciousness is here, and you're in jeopardy. You're playing for all the marbles. Then you've got to get back there.
uh,
Is that what
I'm
you
not
think?
I'm not
Or do you
sure.
think, that you still have your consciousness, your higher self that's in the angelic realms? Because I
Uh,
believe that never leaves there, but I don't know how it works for
I
fallen
think we
angels.
have a higher self. It's kind of like something skates around with us. Like there's only a tiny portion of them, their higher self in this human body. There's only a small portion that we're very
Right.
much larger and bigger. But so to answer your question about the whole, are there good star seeds? There's going to be a time when God sends his angels down in order to free everybody. Now, is that what's happening now? Could be, but when I look around and I hear uh, the new age stuff, that the love and light type of stuff, the
Yeah.
starseed type of stuff, it's very egotistical. And I was of that mindset when I still had my ego as strongly as I did at one time. But the
Yeah.
more I lose my ego, the more I give myself over to Jesus, the more I see the truth. And Haldy McCoskey on Tinfoil Hat, he said the most brilliant line I ever heard is that
Yeah.
you can't find the truth. You can find all these possibilities.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the more you search, you see the lies fall away. And that's how we gain our truth. So when I had these things, these same ideas that you guys are talking about, and I had them fall away from me by going towards the light, and not in a religious sense, but going towards the light of Jesus Christ, then that's why I'm so steadfast on my thoughts, because I've been there and I've had those thoughts and they have fallen away from me as I've gotten closer to what the truth is, becoming one with Christ in a ever growing way. Now, I don't know, and nobody knows all the answers, obviously. Maybe we are in that time, but I know that we as humans are responsible for where we are in a collective
Yeah.
sense, that
Yeah.
we had the free will to put ourselves here, and we have the free will to get ourselves out of here, that we gave over our will to things that were not good for us, and we have to accept our responsibility. Now, maybe that is assuming the lives of uh, beings, you know, as we were saying, assuming the life of something
Yeah.
that was about to die and transmuting the energy for them. Maybe that's how the angels come into humanity. Maybe. But when I hear things like star seeds and love and light, I'm like grossed out by it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear that any longer. I can't listen to spiritual podcasts any longer. The closer I get to,
Really?
yeah, the closer I get to Jesus, the more I'm turned off to all of that. And it's very, yeah,
I think it's kind of like a
it's hard
vessel to
to get
wake
to.
people up. And, it might not be your thing, but it may help someone else to start
Yeah.
to wake up or to start to
Right.
their
It could,
journey. Right. I
but it's
think there's
also a
many different
trap.
ways.
It's
Right.
there's so many traps and mazes in everything that is life. And there's only one thing that I've come across that isn't a trap, because it actually freed me from the demons that were within me, and it's revealed more truth to me than anything. And whenever I'm down, it helps me. And it's Jesus. The
Mm.
only thing that has come through time and time again is the way, the truth, and the life, which is Jesus Christ. And I've had all these psychedelic experiences, seeing these biblical type of things. I've had all these meditations where I am a spiritual warrior and I'm doing all these things. And, I resonate or I did at one time, I resonated with the thinking of those lines. And then something happened, and it was like I could see through the deception that is holding people in this holding pattern. When people say hold the line, I see that as stay stuck. I don't see that as grow and evolve. That's not what I'm seeing when I hear hold the line. I'm seeing stay exactly where you are, because a parasite can't exist without the host. And if the host raises itself up out of that, then the parasite can't live in there any longer.
I agree with
So
the
that's why
opinion
the
on hold the
parasites are
line.
saying hold
Yeah.
the line and all that stuff, is because they want you to stay there, so that because they don't exist without the host, which is
I agree with
us.
that part. That makes sense. That
Mm.
holding the line would kind of keep you stuck. I do believe that everyone starts somewhere, whether it's conspiracy theories
Yeah,
or
and they need it,
spiritualism or
right.
astrology or
Yeah.
the Q movement or an
I needed it
election.
at one
Something
time,
is
all
going
of
to,
it.
and you believe in that at the time. So I think that everybody starts somewhere and evolves from there. And you can't be mad at anyone who's just evolving.
I'm
they're
not
just
mad at anyone
they're
for
just-
it.
Absolutely.
they're just here when you're here, and that's okay. They just have to catch up.
Yeah. I think
And-
a lot of people go about it different ways, and people have
Right.
their different entry points. And for
Right.
some people, the whole religious thing has been so triggering for them
Yeah.
that
Mm.
that they may come back not to religion, but they may come around to
Right.
beings like Christ and the divine creatures, but they have to go a different route because of the false programming, and because of
Right.
the nefarious things that have gone on with scriptures and things being changed, and and just basically, if you follow the news and hear about how many priests have been involved in nefarious cases involving
Right.
children and stuff like that, those sort of things push people away and force them down to find another route. And there has to be other routes, because you can't just say, well, it's this way, or maybe that's the only way in the end. I don't know that it is.
All paths end up leading
what I was
there if
gonna
you're going to
say.
keep growing,
I believe all paths.
it has to, everyone has to get there in their own way. Like exactly like you're saying, I needed all of those different things at different times to
Right.
boost me up to a new level of understanding, so that I could get myself to a point that I could be saved by Christ, and that I could then grow into that, because it wasn't something like I was saved by Christ and it was like, for the next 3 months, I still wasn't really into Jesus, even though I had this sense. I mean, Mimi was there. She didn't experience the feeling that I had, but just the injury that occurred, and then the throwing up of the demons, and me being in a nirvana like state for 10 days, I still was hesitant of Jesus. And then, but just as time goes on, I was drawn towards him more and more, because that's how it's going to happen with everybody at some point.
I like to say that awakening is kind of like a shoots and ladders game. It's like you get you think you think you're
Right.
ahead, and then all of a
It
sudden you
is
just
so
fall
much,
back
yeah.
down,
Yeah.
and you either fall back down a little or a lot. You find these truths, and then you discover that you were deceived. So now you're like back down, like, oh, where do I go now?
Right.
So you
We
get
call
so
that
far
snakes
ahead.
and ladders in the UK.
Yeah, shoots
Snakes
and
and
ladders, we
ladders.
call it here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with it, snakes and ladders. But what you're saying about
that's
the
a great
Same
great analogy. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
and
true.
what you're saying about the Christian church is exactly why Jesus has told me over and over that he's not happy with Christianity. He doesn't, and
No.
that's why I represent Jesus very hardcore. I represent Jesus, but I am very firm in not being a Christian. I might have a cross on my hat or on some of the things that I wear, but that's because the cross to me represents the unfolded box that we are put into. The box, if you are, or a cube, if you were to unfold a cube, it would make a cross. So I don't mind the cross, but Christianity itself has hurt very many people. And I've had on Jeremy Malcolm, and he talked about how devastating it must have been for him. I can only imagine of hearing your father say those types of things. And when you start to relate to people on that level, you can understand that Christianity has done a lot of damage.
Right, and it's certainly
And-
not the
Oh, yeah.
only
And
religion that has done
Jesus,
But it's-
damage.
right,
but it's
but I mean,
also-
Jesus, in Jesus's name. So now that when you mention Jesus, now people are thinking religion, and that's not what's supposed to be.
But it's also only fair to point out that it's given people a lot of comfort as well.
Yes, it has. It has
You know,
helped. Yes, it has
In the
helped a
interest of-
great
in
many
the interest
people
of,
find
like,
each
being
other.
fair, you
Right.
know, a lot of people, it's been something for them to hold on to and get them through tough times, you know.
Right. Yeah, I've
Um,
had several
So
pastors
it has
on
a
my
good side as
show.
well. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've
Yeah.
listened, yeah. And
And
they must be fucking sticking pins in dolls like that look like Malcolm from what I've said today.
And
No,
when you're
that's
when
the
you're at your
character.
lowest,
But I don't want to upset anyone or mess
of
with
course
anyone
not.
else's beliefs, but I can only go with what rings true to my Christ Magdalene
Right.
consciousness, you know, and
Right.
that's all I can do. And I'm sure I'll take some wrong turns and make some more mistakes and go down some chutes, but
We all
I'm
will.
definitely going to find a few ladders as well, hopefully, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're a completely different person. Mimi, is this the first time you're seeing Malcolm?
Besides Facebook, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you know, he shaved the
Yeah.
beard, his hair looks really nice.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Yeah, the beard's
smiling
coming
so
back
much.
pretty quick.
Yeah, but it looks good. It's a good size for you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You're like
Yeah,
a
whereas-
Santa Claus,
it was out here. Yeah.
like
Oh, like Brad's.
a
like
modern
big-
Santa Claus.
Oh, one like Brad's, man. Brad's is but Brad's
Yeah,
is awesome.
Brad's,
Brad's is like
yeah.
neat and cut, like yeah,
Yeah.
that's a wicked beard. That is
Yeah,
like
it
he's yeah, he gives me beard envy, man. For sure. When mine's
Yeah.
all white, I'm gonna grow one like that, but it's kind
Yeah.
of patchy at the moment. It's half white, half brown, so it looks a
It
bit
happens.
like a cow.
My hair is
It
half, you
happened.
can't see it, but it's half white and half. It's my stress highlights.
It's
That's what-
it's
that's what it
it's
is.
in vogue. Grey hair's in vogue at the moment. Apparently, I went to the
All right.
barbers the other day, and
And
they
they're-
said everybody wants their hair dyed grey at the moment. You know, it's
Oh,
true.
wow.
everybody reckons it's rad at the moment.
They think it makes them look wiser.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it does. See, I think I stopped aging. I haven't cut my hair since the day before my 30th birthday, which is coming up on 2 years now. And it hasn't really grown all that much. I mean, it just keeps curling up, really. But I feel like I stopped aging when I cut my hair, or last
Oh,
cut my
man.
hair.
I can't wait for all my hair to turn white, man. As long as my eyebrows change color with it, I don't want to end up with brown eyebrows and white hair.
Dark brown eyebrows.
Yeah. Hey, I'll dye them if that happens.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Hey, well, I think that we should be comfortable with being uncomfortable, being comfortable with being the center of attention in a negative way. You know,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that we have to make peace
Be
with
different.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, yeah, and that's really just the only thing that gets upset by it is our ego, isn't it? Really,
Yeah,
at the end
exactly.
of the day.
Yeah.
The
And
ego
you know,
gets butthurt.
yeah, and this episode was the first time where, you know, I had a bit of a disagreement with somebody, but it's because we're such good friends that
Yeah.
It's because I'm here. No.
that we're comfortable. No. But we're
No, well,
comfortable
we're just
with
being honest.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with being honest, and that's great.
yeah, and
Right,
working
and right
through
now,
our stuff.
right. And right now, that's our truth that we're holding right now, and we'll grow from that.
Yeah, of
we
course.
Yeah,
may,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
we'll come around.
Yeah, I evolve like every day. Like I'll change my opinion on something as I'm thinking about it more and more. I'm like,
It's
well,
true.
this, and we always reserve the right to change our opinion
Yeah.
on the fly.
Yeah.
You know, I can be presented with something that counter or contradicts what I just said, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'll change my mind then. You know, that's
Yeah.
we have to be fluid and what's going on. But it's because we're such good friends that we're able to work through our things like this.
Absolutely, brother.
I
Absolutely.
love to be able to talk it out.
Yeah, that's what we have to
Absolutely.
do. And
It's
my
all
new
very,
intro,
very healthy. It's all very, very
Yeah.
healthy to discuss stuff like this. And I'm going to go away and think about the stuff you said, and who knows, you know, maybe
Yeah.
next time we'll be more in alignment, or vice versa. Even maybe you'll
Right.
think, oh, maybe Malcolm was right about that, or maybe
Right.
maybe not. Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
yeah, we're always growing. We're always garnering new information. And my new intro, you're in it, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, I was honored to be asked to
I'm
do
glad
it.
that you're on it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you took out my voice from the last one.
Yeah, she didn't like hearing herself. But what I was going to say in the new intro, I say in there that we have to look at things from both sides, both viewpoints, in order
All
to
viewpoints.
Yeah.
in order, excuse me, to have a better, higher understanding. So
Yeah.
that's the only way that we can come together, is if we have the difficult conversations.
Absolutely. And that higher understanding comes from being detached from the ego and
Exactly.
looking at the big picture, not from inside out.
Right.
And
Right.
that's not easy to do, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to develop those skills.
And we're all getting there. We're all trying to get there anyway. Well,
yeah.
the three of us are. I hope that everybody listening is also trying to, and I'm sure that they are. If they're coming to my podcast, they're trying to grow.
Yeah.
No one comes here by mistake. I talk about some crazy, crazy shit. So nobody's coming to my podcast unless they're ready to open their mind to possibilities. And the feedback that I get from people is so beautiful. And I'm so honored and thankful for it. And to make friends like you, it is a great blessing
Oh
to
man,
be able to do this.
thank you. Yes, I feel exactly the same. And yourself, we have some cool conversations. Sometimes
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
phone me up, and 2 hours later we're still going at it. We're just
Yeah.
enjoying it and having the best time. Think, well, what about this? What about this? Have you thought about this? Just bouncing off each other, and it's awesome. I love it. It's the best time ever. I love talking about this stuff and wondering what's going to happen. It's just so fun. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a beautiful journey we're on. And it's like we're watching a flower open one petal at a time. And you can't tell what the next petal is going to look like. We're trying to work it out. We're trying to do our best and think, oh, it's going to be this, going to be that. But I guarantee you, we're going to be surprised every time. And we're going to keep getting surprise after surprise after surprise. Layer after layer, one surprise after another, and it's just beautiful.
That's
really
right.
is.
Mimi, do you
It's
have
like-
anything? Oh, go finish
Go
up.
ahead.
It's like you've got a Christmas present to unwrap all the time, but you don't want to go poking around your Christmas presents and find out what they are before Christmas Day. You want to open them on Christmas Day and enjoy
Right.
that surprise with everyone.
Exactly.
And that's what each layer is, man.
Yeah, we need
It's
our
just a
patience.
beautiful surprise.
So a lot of layers. And it's
Lot
a
of layers.
lot of
There's a lot of layers.
information.
And we don't know how many layers yet. We don't. This
It's
could go on
how
and
many
on.
how many licks does it take to get
Yeah.
to the center
It's
of the
one hell of a layer cake. One hell of a
Yeah.
layer
It
cake.
is. It is, and it's a lot for any brain to
Oh man,
comprehend.
it's too much.
It's so much.
That's why
But
it's
why
so
it-
fun. And so
That's why it
mind-boggling.
takes so long.
Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's exhausting, and it's a lot.
Mhm.
And sometimes you're right. It does make you crazy sometimes when you learn things and you're like, oh my gosh, this can't be true. Like this can't be happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it is happening.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a lot.
So we're
Uh-oh.
about to wrap it up here. Do you have anything left to say to Malcolm, or anything you want to leave him with?
Well, I just speak when I speak.
All right. So Malcolm, do you, before we get into the grounded techniques, is there anyone
I
where?
do have something to say.
Go ahead.
I will read the second book, and we will do another interview.
Yeah, we can
and we'll
do-
talk
Oh,
about the
yeah.
second book too, because I am
man.
ready to read the second book.
Yeah,
It should
we
be
might
arriving today, but I didn't.
we might need
say it.
3 hours for that.
Yeah.
We might need 3 hours
Yeah,
for that.
it takes me a
If
long
we're doing
time. Took
both
me a long
books.
time to get through the first book because I need to read a little bit and then digest.
Yeah.
Sometimes for a week before I even pick it back up because it's a lot.
I'm gonna go back and read the first book again because I think I read it too quickly. I don't think I could take it all in. I'm taking the second book at a little more of a gentle pace, but in terms of a grounding technique, take your shoes and socks off on cool wet grass. Put your feet on the cool wet grass. Walk around. Meditate with your feet on the grass. Go and have a bath. Meditate in the bath. Meditate in the shower, and make sure
where I
you
like to do
breathe
it.
in deeply. Hold that breath for a few seconds and squeeze it all out. Squeeze it all out every time on each breath.
I don't know where you
And-
heard that.
Yeah. There you go. I'm giving away all Todd's secrets now.
I know. I give it away too, but
Yeah, of course, man. Of
don't
course. They're
realize
not
how
hanging on to.
How deep your breath
they're not
really is
hanging on
until
to.
you squeeze it all out.
And it's funny, when I do these types of things, it's I take on everything that's in you, I put it in me. And I love when I'm telling you, I'll be like, okay, let me tell you what I felt. And then every time
Oh yeah.
everyone's always like, oh man, that lines up. Like,
Oh
how did,
yeah.
and like, I don't know how I know. It's just I absorb you kind of.
So I want to say, if you're having an iron about the ascension and think you're stuck and you're not sure what's going on, I encourage you to get in touch with Todd Emmanuel, and just reach out and he'll give you a free phone call, and you can go from there. And you can, but like,
That's right.
if you think you may need some help, and you think that you're looking for someone, and particularly, if you're a guy, I know that there's a lot of things that I've discussed with Todd that would be difficult for me to discuss with a woman, put it that way, without going into any details. It's nice, and I can highly recommend working with him. He's really great. He's really gifted. He's a very special person on the human design type. He's a reflector, which means all his energy centers are clear, so he can receive everything from you, and he sees things with a great clarity. So I highly recommend working with Emmanuel Kingman, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you so much, my
Oh,
friend.
thanks for that soundbite. No.
Yeah, that means so much that you would say that. It really
Yeah.
does. I want to thank you so much for that. And you even connected me with your friend Carrie,
Yes.
and we worked together. So Malcolm is a man of his word. He took action and getting his friend someone who could possibly assist her. So
Absolutely.
And I
I'm
think
so
you-
grateful to you.
I remember
wow.
from what you just said, I remember that Pastor Doug and Josh and a few other male guests that we've had, they all talk about how, it's very hard for a man to even talk to another man. Sometimes it's difficult, but it needs to happen. The conversations need to be had. You have to trust someone at some point.
Right. When do you start talking about sex organs and thoughts
Yeah.
Mm.
and
Yeah, I
things that
feel
are
a bit-
very
I'm-
uncomfortable?
I feel a bit weird talking like that with a woman, probably because I'm British. We're a little bit reserved sexually. Like, we don't,
Yeah,
we
it's
don't have
uncomfortable for
sex.
me.
We're British,
Yeah, it's not easy, but I try to not be judgmental, and I try to hear you out, and I try to see things from your point of view and assist you where you need assisting. I'm not trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Mm.
I'm trying to help you shave it off so that you can make it a round peg and put it in the round hole.
Yeah,
And
you
not in a
definitely,
sexual context either. I just
you definitely did your groundwork with me. You were very thorough. You asked me a lot of really good questions that brought stuff out. We got to the problem pretty quickly, and we sorted it out. Or you did. You helped me sort it out
you
collaboratively
sorted it
together.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, collaborative. Yeah, it was a process. It was
Collaboratively,
you,
yeah.
me, Jesus, all of us. We were just
yeah, absolutely.
party.
Jesus played a big part in it. My
yeah.
beloved brother, my beloved older brother, Jesus. What a
Yeah.
fantastic being he is.
Yes, he is. So I think that's going to do it for us. I want to thank you. So, is there anywhere you want our audience to find you?
You can find me. I've got a Facebook group called the Sacred Tribe of Gaia. You're welcome to join me there. You can hit me up on Facebook. My name is Malcolm Welch, MALCOLMWELCH. You're welcome to get in touch with me. I am a shadow worker. I had not got a business set up yet, but if you want to reach out to me and you feel like you want to ever talk, if you want to get in touch about anything, hit me up. I'm here, man. And like, I'm still learning, I'm still learning on the job. I'm shadow working with some of my friends at the moment, but pretty soon I will have services to offer, and I'm here to help. And I hope I can help you if you need help.
And a podcast maybe in your future.
Yeah.
Well, there is
Maybe.
there is talk of a podcast coming, but I need to check in with a certain person who needs 28 days to decide whether he does stuff or not, because
Is that you?
I don't
yeah,
think so.
because
Okay.
Is
yeah,
it
you're
me?
a reflector, brother. You need to have 28 days to,
right.
you need a 28-day calling off period to see if it's the right idea.
When you said
But
the
yeah,
28 days, I was like, oh, he's not talking about me, but I forgot. Yeah, you're right about the
Oh,
reflective.
I
day.
was right. He is talking about you.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We have there's something talks of a possible podcast, you know, a
yeah,
weekly deal coming up or whatever. We'll get to it when
yeah.
it
We're gonna have
happens.
I'd
something
love to
else,
be a
but
guest.
Yeah.
oh well, I'd love to have you on here. I'd love to have you on. Absolutely.
Oh, I would
And
love to be part of an interview for Mimi. You know, you interviewing Mimi and me being
Sitting on
there.
the side taking notes for me.
Yeah.
Yes. Taking my job.
well, I'm
Yes.
sure we can. I'm sure we can get around to that. It's always a lot of fun to hang with you guys and talk with you guys. So I mean, I'm down for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, anyone listening, you know, I do recommend getting in touch with Malcolm. Malcolm is a really good friend, and he's going to listen to you, and he's going to help you the best he can. And you know, Malcolm has a lot of knowledge, and he's on the right path. He's definitely not trying to deceive anybody, and he just
Mhm.
wants the best for all of humanity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shadow
Yeah.
work is never ending.
Amen and amen.
Amen. All right, so we're going to say goodbye to our audience. Goodbye, everybody. We will talk to you later.
All right.